So this week I was reminded that sometimes I'm an idiot. And I know for those of you that have known me for any length of time, that's probably not going to come as a surprise. But there were a few events that happened this week that reminded me that sometimes I am an idiot and I don't handle situations the way I should. And I think we're all in the same boat. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we don't respond to situations the way we should respond to them. And I want to share with you these two events, and then I want to look at this passage in the Bible. So the first event. So the first event is earlier today. Our 16-year-old son Lucas went to Walmart, and he had the transmission to my 84 square body in the back of the truck. And how it got in the back of the truck, just give you a little bit of context to what happened there. So earlier last year, because this is 25 now, earlier last year in 24, back during the summer, I went to this tailgate race in Newport. We'll throw up some videos of that, so you can kind of watch that as I'm talking about it. So went to this tailgate race with all truck race in Newport, Arkansas. I took my truck to it, and it was fun. It was fun while it lasted, I should say. I would show you some more footage of it, but that's all there is because I only made 2 passes. Because on the second pass, the transmission left the chat. And so I come home, pulled out the transmission. Well, the transmission's been setting for a while. Well, one of my friends also has the same type of transmission. And so we were going to go, rebuild them together. So had plans to do that this weekend. We threw the transmission in the back of Lucas's truck, and that's where it's been for a little while. And he knew it was there. He helped me load it. Every time I've gotten in the truck with him when he's went somewhere, I've said, hey, don't forget that transmission's in the back of your truck. Just, kind of be careful, drive. Well, today I was working. He ran to Walmart for his mom. He comes back to the house. I happened to look outside at the truck, and the tailgate's open. And I was like, that's odd. I wonder why his tailgate's open. So I said, hey, bud, why is your tailgate open? He's like, I didn't know it was. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, please go look and see if there's still a transmission in the back of your truck. He goes, no transmission. And I don't tell you this story to embarrass him or anything like that. I tell you this story to tell you how I reacted and how it was wrong. So I was not happy. So I was like, let's go look for the transmission. You just went to Walmart. We live like, half mile from Walmart. We jump in the truck, go down the road. Can't find it. Don't see it anywhere. I'm just expecting it was wrapped in a trash bag, tied up so it wouldn't get water and stuff in it. It needs rebuilt, but anyway, don't see the transmission. Come back home. I make a Facebook post, which is probably one of the weirdest Facebook posts I've ever made, which was, hey, if anybody finds a transmission wrapped in a trash bag in the road in this area, let me know. It's mine. Anyway, long story short, we go back out looking for it, and I'm thinking, man, like, it's still somewhere. We do find it. It's like way over in this guy's yard. Anyway, I tell all you that for this purpose. I wasn't very graceful with him, or gracious, I should say. I did not show grace to him. He's 16. He's a good kid, and he's a good driver. And I was just not very, forgiving in that moment. So Brooke comes to me. She comes to me and says, hey, like privately, not around in front of the kids. It was like, hey, remember when you were 16? And I know what she meant. Like, did dumb stuff when I was 16. And I'm not even saying this is completely his fault. And I was reminded when I was 16, or about 16, 17 years old, I lost my best friend's three-wheeler, and he watches this sometimes. I lost my best friend's three-wheeler out of the back of my truck on Prairie Street before school one morning because I was taking off from a stop sign fast. And I was a young kid, and I was dumb. So that's the first event that I want to talk about, and how that I could have handled it better. So the second event is more of a national event. It's a lot more important than losing a transmission out of the back of your truck. But so there was a American Airlines plane coming in to land at Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., and it hit a Black Hawk, actually the Black Hawk helicopter, I think, hit it. Anyway, and like 67 people died. And why that affected me is because over the last about 5 or 6 years, I've flown in and out of that airport for work numerous times. And actually, the last time I did it, it was my wife and I. She went with me for a work trip, and we were leaving, and it was dark. We were flying out at night. That could have been our plane. Like, that could have happened to us. So the combination of these two events just reminded me that sometimes I'm an idiot. and I don't handle things the way I should, and I don't treat people the way I should be treating people. So it reminded me of this verse. It's found in Matthew chapter 22. And to tell you what's going on here in Matthew chapter 22, some Pharisees, that was a group of Jewish religious people, had came to Jesus to ask him a question. And it wasn't just to gain spiritual knowledge or anything. They were trying to trick him. And the question they asked him was like, hey, teacher, what is the greatest commandment? What is the greatest law? In all of the laws that the Jewish people follow. And the reason this was kind of a trick is because they did like group the laws into different categories, but according to them, like there was no greatest law. According to them, there was not really a good answer to this question. So they asked Jesus this. And his response is key in how we should treat people, and really, I think, helps give some, perspective for our worldview, or it should. Anyway, so this is what Jesus says. This is Matthew 22, verse 37. It says, Jesus replied. He's replying to that question. Remember, the greatest commandment. Jesus says, whoever dies with the most toys and looks out for themselves all their life, they win. Jesus said, whoever loves the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, he says, this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Sometimes we act like the goal of life is to gather the most toys, or and we may not say that out loud, right? But we do, and we act like we can take some of this stuff with us. And when we read these words, Jesus is like, hey, like, man, you know what's really important? 2 relationships. That's your relationship with God and your relationship with people. And we should be loving people, loving God, and using things, not using people and loving things. And And this week, as these two events occurred, I was just reminded that, man, like, when I get to heaven, Jesus is not going to be like, hey, did you get that transmission fixed? And were you able to make more than 2 passes in that raggedy truck of yours? No, that's not even going to be on the radar, right? Like, but it's easy. It's easy to get to sidetracked with that stuff. Nothing wrong with having those hobbies and doing things. I like it myself, obviously. But the priority is in that when we're doing those things, whether it be a hobby, whether it be a job, whatever, like, we need to remember and not lose sight, not lose track of the fact that the most important thing is loving God and loving people. And it's not that I forgot that. It's that I put that like aside for a moment and let emotions and feelings over stuff. Man, this is a hunk of metal. Like, is it valuable? Yeah. I mean, relatively, yeah. But it's still just, it's a hunk of metal just laying in this dude's yard. I hope we don't have a Ring doorbell because he's going to see some weird stuff going on. But it's just metal. So I hope that helps you like it did me. And next week we'll be back in the shop. I did this one in here because just the nature of the video is a little easier to do. So I'm gonna have the shop all cleaned up. We'll do it next week in the shop. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great week.